Hello everyone, welcome to this new video. In today's episode, I have Vin Ho. Vin is living in the US and we're gonna discuss about the recent Trump election, what he had just been implemented the last weeks, as well as what may come very soon, and then the impact on the international trade. Hey mate, I'm very to have you today.
Hey, nice to be here, Guillaume.
So Vin, Trump has been implemented numbers of orders in his day one of new presidency. I think the main one that tackle and has important effect will be related to immigration.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
What he basically implemented that day.
Trump, he won his candidacy on being strong on immigration. You know, the last 2 or 3 years, he's been blaming the Biden administration. So he's been saying it's been open borders. There's too many people coming into the country from Latin America, Mexico, Venezuela, and it's a broken system. So he said from day one, he's going to send troops to the border and start to deport many of these illegals or people that don't have the correct paperwork to be in America.
Okay, so basically providing green cards, right, and then allowing migrants to also access to U.S. citizenship will be more difficult. So I guess it's going to also impact all the immigration related businesses, so people who were helping foreigners to also acquire a green card or stay in the U.S.
You know, it's pretty ironic because America is built, the economy, on immigration. You know, the people in agriculture that are working the supermarkets, that are working the fields, picking fruit and working those types of industries. And then you've got construction, building roads, housing, and all that. That's by immigrant labor, and a lot of them are illegal. And then the restaurant industry, most of the restaurants in America, the kitchens are run by Hispanics or Mexicans and people like that. And some, not all, but some don't have the correct paperwork or they've overstayed their visa. And so when Trump says he's going to send all of those people back home, it sounds good. You know, most of the Americans living here, they say, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's try to help the economy. By sending people home, they'll have more jobs for native people here, for the Americans here. But it's more complex than that, because if you take away those people, the economy will collapse. Prices will go skyrocket, increase. So I don't really see that as a good solution.
So, Vin, touching the point of economic, what may also be the domino effect with the America First, that is Trump's slogan, and how it's going to touch also the local manufacturing versus all foreign entities that are also importing goods to the US?
Again, I think he has this populist message. It sounds good to the people that live in America. You know, America first. We're worried and we want to focus on America's prosperity. We don't care about other countries. But, you know, again, the world is more complex than that. We've seen in history the countries that isolate themselves are the ones that have the problems economically. They don't open up to the rest of the world, and then they just focus on themselves, and that tends to be, you know, not really a good outcome. So it sounds good on the surface. We focus on America. We just care about America and Americans. But the world is really global. And so everything in America is made overseas. There's a lot of American companies survive because they have the growing segments over abroad, you know, the growing markets in Indonesia, Vietnam, Southeast Asia, China, or in Africa, Latin America. These are the growing areas, and these are where the American companies want to be and should be. When Trump talks about that, I think economically it's not going to be good in the long run for America.
Okay, interesting. So you think by also focusing too much on America, it may also narrow down some American businesses not to expand, right? And just because they will have more issues and then more things to tackle on the US soil, it may also impact the expansion of American businesses overseas?
Yeah, I think so. If you look at all the successful companies, they're all global. You know, Apple, Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. Every company in America, from big car brands to anything, to Costco or to any, you know, retailers, a lot of them, either they make their products or they import their products from overseas, or they open up other businesses, the same business, Best Buy or something like that, electronics, overseas for the Chinese market, for the growing Southeast Asian market, for the growing Latin American market. So those companies are very, very global, very, very international. So when Trump talks about just focusing on America, again, it speaks to his base, but that's not the reality.
Very interesting point, yeah, to highlight the fact that now everything is global. So you have to be also adaptive enough and not deny foreign markets that may be also promising. And just with the current slowdown of the economy in the West, it can be in the US or in Europe, it's true that there is a growing need of consumers that are in Asia, maybe in South America as well, that companies can also spread their awareness, their services, products, to also expand and grow. Vin, you touch a point about logistics and also when US companies will be importing goods, because most of them they will be manufacturing overseas. What are the impact on the duties and then on the tariff that Trump's want to implement?
Yeah, Trump has talked about increasing tariffs on products coming in from Mexico and Canada, 25%. He's even said 60% for Chinese-made goods. So he makes these specific call-outs about these tariffs, and that's going to be a problem. It's going to increase inflation because one thing is he doesn't understand how tariffs work. These countries aren't paying the tariffs. The domestic companies are, and then they pass that on to the consumers, which is the Americans. For example, Costco, Target. These are big brands in America that import a lot of products for American consumption. So when they go and buy and import products from China, like lighting, clothing, electronics, anything like that, they buy the product, they buy lots of containers, and when it comes to Long Beach, California, there's a tariff on certain goods, 1%, 2%, 3% on certain items, toys, electric bicycles. And then now Trump's saying we're going to increase that tariff to 25% or to 60% for in China's case. And then now that product is going to be, almost double. And so what does the company do? They have to pass that down to the American consumers because they're not going to pay for it and then sell it at a loss, right? They bought $100,000 of merchandise of goods in one container. And now that's $160,000 or $180,000 of goods. So then what they're going to do is they're going to now calculate how much they bought it and now how much they can sell it for domestically. So the price is going to increase for Americans. It's going to increase inflation. So it's not going to help the problem.
Yeah, so in the end, it's going to be the American consumer that are going to pay those extra duties. Regarding to foreign markets, such as neighboring countries, I can think about Vietnam, I can think about Indonesia, Thailand, India, that are currently growing in demand of manufacturing, right? It can be manufacturing location with a China plus one strategy. So companies are diversifying their supply chain, and they will tend to also diversify their procurement centers and where they are manufacturing and sourcing products. Do you think those neighboring countries will benefit from that, or can it be also a domino effect to those countries?
Yeah, it looks like with Trump in office, he's really focused on China, right? So China is quote unquote the enemy. So he's really trying to punish them. So that makes surrounding countries such as Vietnam or India, could be Indonesia, that rise up and have more opportunities. So we saw that 4 years ago with the rise of Vietnam. It was on everyone's radar all of a sudden because people wanted, like you said, the China plus one strategy. We saw supply chains, some companies start moving to Vietnam, and then you started to see more interest there. So that could be the case again if Trump takes a harder stance on China. But the only caveat, the only problem is maybe Trump will start to target Vietnam. Then that's a different case. If he increases tariffs on Vietnamese goods, then we might see, it's like a whack-a-mole. Then, the neighboring country will see some more sourcing. But it's more complex than that because Vietnam is not like the next China. It can do some things, but it's 1/10 of the population of the size of China. So it can't take everything. You can't start manufacturing everything that China manufactures on the same level. It can only take some industries and some industries that they do well. And so that goes down the line. Maybe Thailand, Cambodia, or Indonesia, they have different markets. They have different economies. They're good at some things, but not everything that China can make.
Yeah, it's very good input, Vin, regarding to the relocation of supply chain and how big brands actually implemented diversification just to secure some markets and to make sure that not everything is coming from China. There is another point that is also very important for US consumers is all the regulatory and climate change environment. What's basically Trump's position on that and how he suggests the economy to go?
Okay, yeah, here again, Trump is saying we should deregulate, taking more of a free market system and then get rid of the laws. For example, he wants to say the oil industry in America, we want to drill more, we have more land available to drill oil, and then whatever it's in the Bitcoin or into other types of industries, he wants to deregulate, less laws, so that the economy can flourish. But again, I think there's going to be some problems because it's not that easy. And then I think the reason we have certain institutions and laws are to protect the American consumer. For example, the EPA, they want to have the clear skies, clean water in terms of the climate change that we're seeing across the world. Those things are important and we have to have guardrails in place, but Trump really doesn't believe in them. He has a simple mindset of just getting rid of laws and then things will flourish and things will be better off. But again, I think that will open up to chaos and for opportunities for people to, get into fraudulent activities or milk the system, or, you're seeing the rich are getting richer. So I think there's going to be issues down the road in terms of deregulating, and Trump doesn't believe in climate change. So the first thing he did was he took America off of the Paris agreements about climate change. So I think there's going to be some issues later down the road.
So what are basically your thoughts, and then how do you see the future for America's economy in the next 4 to 5 years?
Things happen, you make a decision now and then it plays out in the next few years. So it takes some time to see what will happen. But most economists believe that the Trump policies are going to be problematic for most Americans because America voted for Trump because of inflation, high prices. They were sick of that. And they voted for Trump because they believed 4 years ago the economy was better. Products were cheaper. But honestly, with his policies, I don't think, and I don't see it getting cheaper or getting better. With his tariffs in place, it will increase costs for most Americans. I think there's one study said that for American family of 4 people, it's going to be an extra $2,700 per family for in 1 year, added costs. And then with the immigration, he's planning to crack down on illegal immigrants. Again, it sounds good to the Americans that live here. Oh, get rid of the immigrants. There'll be more jobs. But again, those are the people that are working the industries that Americans don't want to do, picking fruit, agriculture, cooking in the back rooms of the restaurant, cleaning the streets, sewing, many of those industries. They're also working in meat packing plants, to process chicken or beef. The native-born Americans here, they don't want to be doing those jobs. And so it'll be really, really hard to implement. And then finally, with his tariffs, again, it sounds good to most Americans, but it's actually the Americans that are going to pay for it. And then they say, oh, we're doing the high tariffs so industry can come back to America. But let me tell you, manufacturing is not coming back to America. Americans don't want to work in factories. For example, Nike or Adidas, or they say, look, we're going to stop in Vietnam, we're going to go back to America, and then 1, find land, 2, build the building, 3, find the workforce, the Americans to work in these factories, to do sewing, to do assembly. How long is that going to take? And then, realistically, the cost is going to be very, very expensive. So when you ask me in the next 4 years and in the future, again, it doesn't look good to me economically. There could be some different changes in the world economy. Things could turn out differently, but I'm kind of pessimistic with his policies. And I think as more and more Americans in 2 years, 3 years start to wake up and realize things aren't improving, then it's going to be trouble for Trump and his administration because honestly, I think people will be fed up in the end.
Okay, it was good to have your ideas on this, Vin. It's true that with the labor shortage that you mentioned, the import tariffs as well, and not all the companies are ready to go back to America and, for instance, set up manufacturing facilities. So in the end, there may be good things that Trump will implement, such as, for instance, having Elon Musk to also regulate the system and make more processes to probably cut down the cost on the governmental side. But for the economy and for the real US American, I'm not sure all of those things will be beneficial for them. So it was great to get your inputs today, Vin.
Great to have a discussion with you, Guillaume.
So you can check below in the description. I will leave more information about those recent laws that Trump just implemented, and then let's see in the next upcoming months and then years how it's going to turn for the US.
So that's kind of the summary, it seems like, of what's going to happen. So thank you again for having this opportunity to discuss.
Thank you, Vin. It was a pleasure to discuss about this today.
Down and I'ma get it right. Dead on sight like